Welcome back to Witchin' and Winin',
where we talk about the paranormally weird, the mysteriously strange, and occasionally the paranormally sticky, because cotton candy ghosts are still ghosts.
True. Well, I'm Miranda, your resident witch.
And I'm Christal, your resident wino.
So this week we're diving into something a little different, but also very fun. Haunted theme parks.
You mean the places we voluntarily pay to be terrified, and yet somehow still manage to accidentally invite the real ghosts in.
Exactly. There's something about theme parks that already flirts with fear. You know, drops and screams and funhouse mirrors, and, it's performative terror. For every happy memory or overpriced funnel cake, there's a darker piece of history hidden under the pavement.
Accidents, closures, fires, people who never made it off the ride.
And yet, the music just keeps on playing. The lights flicker back on, and the rides start again like nothing ever happened.
But maybe not everything resets when the park opens.
So tonight, pour a drink or grab a churro and join us as we explore the strange echoes and lingering energy of haunted theme parks. This first story is from Universal Studios Hollywood. Picture this. You walk into Universal Studios, sun shining, people laughing, the smell of popcorn and churros in the air. It's supposed to be a place where fantasy comes to life, right? Where monsters stay on the screen, and the only thing you're meant to fear is the wait time for a ride. But what if some of the stories here didn't end when the camera stopped rolling? Because, according to employees, there are parts of this park where the line between movie magic and something much older starts to blur. So, let's start back all the way to 1915. Long before the theme park, when Universal was just beginning, there was a man named Frank Stites. He was a stunt pilot hired to perform daring aerial tricks during the studio's grand opening, the kind of show that would make people look up in awe. But something went wrong. His plane lost control and he crashed. And he didn't survive. And ever since then, people say that he never actually really left. So late at night, on the backlot, when everything is quiet and the sets sit empty, many workers have reported hearing something that shouldn't be there anymore. The distant roar of an engine, which is not a car, it's not a generator, but they're like, it's an airplane. Some have even claimed to see a figure moving through the shadows, like someone still walking the grounds, still tied to the place where it all ended. And that's just the beginning. There was once a stage on the lot, Stage 28, a place that held one of the most iconic sets in horror history, the Phantom of the Opera, the version starring Lon Chaney, known for his haunting transformation into the Phantom. The set itself was legendary, but so were the stories that came after. Crew members working on the stage over the years reported strange things like props shifting when no one was near them, footsteps echoing around empty space, and sometimes the unmistakable feeling of being watched. Some believed it wasn't just the set that lingered there. They believed he did too. That Lon Chaney, who poured so much of himself into that role, left something behind. Not intentionally, but enough that his presence could still be felt long after the camera stopped rolling. And then there's the story that feels quieter, but somehow even more unsettling. Near where Back to the Future, the ride once stood, there have been repeated sightings of a young girl. Not part of any show, not in costume, just there. Guests and staff alike have described seeing her standing alone, sometimes near the ride area, sometimes just beyond it, before she suddenly just disappears. No footsteps, no sound, just gone. And no one seems to know who she is or why she's there. Now, if you ask employees where things feel the most off, they'll point you towards the lower lot. During the day, it's busy, rides, crowd, noise, but at night, it's a different place. Workers have reported objects moving without explanation, shadows that don't match anything around them, and that creeping feeling that someone is just out of sight, watching. Always watching. And then there's one of the more chilling stories tied to the terror tram. You know, the attraction where actors jump out and scare guests. Well, there are whispers that one of those scare actors died unexpectedly. And after that, things started happening. Lights flickering off with no electrical issue, drawers slamming shut on their own, equipment being moved only to be found somewhere else, almost like someone was still, doing their job, still trying to scare people even after death. So yeah, Universal Studios Hollywood is built on storytelling, but some of the stories there, they don't belong to writers. They belong to something that refuses to leave set.
Okay, I'm not even gonna lie. That's actually really interesting. Like, if a place is built on storytelling, it almost makes sense that some of that energy would stick around. Especially with Frank Stites, because that's not even tied to a movie. That's just a real person, a real event. And it feels like less like a haunting and more like history echoing.
Yes, echoing, yeah. So the history echoing is just the shadow. It's playing in the background just on repeat,
But the Lon Chaney thing, that one's fascinating to me because actors put so much emotion into the roles, especially something as intense as Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah, and he didn't just play the character, he became it. Like, these method actors are unreal sometimes.
So it makes you wonder if you put that much of yourself into something, does a piece of you stay behind?
Yeah, I think that's a cool way to look at it and pretty much accurate.
But the little girl, though, that's different. That's the kind of story where there's no context, and that's what makes it stick.
Yeah, like no explanation, no clear origin, just sightings. Like, I want to know.
And those are the ones that make you pause a little, not necessarily scared, just curious.
Yeah, I get that.
But I will say the terror tram situation, that's kind of wild. Like, imagine loving your job so much that you just never leave.
Or the job never lets you leave.
Ooh. Now that is a different conversation. Because now we're talking about workplace hauntings, and I have questions.
But yeah, HR, I don't think would be equipped for that anyway.
Not at all. All right. So this next story is a little different. It's still a theme park, still a place that was meant for fun and entertainment, but this one is rooted in something very real. We're talking about Six Flags Great Adventure in Jackson Township, New Jersey. Back in the early 1980s, there was an attraction there called the Haunted Castle. And like most attractions with that name, it was designed to feel disorienting. Dark corridors, unexpected turns, things jumping out at you. The kind of place where you're supposed to feel a little on edge, but in a fun way. But on May 11th, 1984, that atmosphere became something else entirely. A fire started inside the attraction. And what makes this especially unsettling is that at first people didn't recognize it as danger, because everything about the haunted castle was already meant to feel chaotic and confusing. The smoke, the darkness, the unfamiliar layout, it all blended in with the experience. So instead of reacting immediately, some people hesitated. They thought it might just be part of the ride, but it wasn't. The fire spread quickly, and 8 people became trapped inside. They didn't make it out. After that day, the haunted castle was shut down and eventually removed. The attraction itself is gone, but what happened there didn't just disappear. Because over time, there have been reports, both from employees and guests, of something still lingering in that space. People have described seeing figures, just briefly, not clearly enough to identify, but enough to notice something's there. And what stands out most is the detail in their appearance, the clothing. Not modern, but distinctly from the 1980s. Like they don't belong to the present. Some say the figures seem disoriented, almost like they're trying to make sense of where they are. Others describe them as moving with purpose, like they're searching for a way out. And then, just like that, they're gone. No sound, no trace, just a moment that doesn't quite fit. And for me, this one doesn't come across as something trying to scare people. It feels more like a moment that never fully settled. Like something happened so suddenly, so intensely, that a part of it just stayed behind, not as a performance, not as a story, just as an echo. And honestly, that idea that something can leave an imprint like that, it doesn't just stay in one place. Because when you start looking into theme parks in general, especially ones built on older land, you start to notice a pattern. There are stories like this all over. There are stories like this at another Six Flags, the Six Flags over Texas in Arlington, Texas. Now this park, like most, is full of energy. Rides, music, people everywhere. It's lively, bright, the kind of place that feels very much in the present. But underneath all of that, there's a much older story tied to the land itself. Long before the park was built, back in 1920, the body of a young girl was found in a creek bed in that area. Her name was said to be Annie. And while the details surrounding her death aren't always clear, what people focus on now is what came after. Because over the years, there have been repeated reports, both from employees and guests, of a little girl seen around the park. She's most often associated with an area near the Texas Giant roller coaster, specifically a building known as the Yellow House. People have described seeing her there, sometimes just standing quietly, sometimes moving through the area like she's exploring. But she's not always confined to that one spot. Some say she roams, that she's been seen in different parts of the park, appearing briefly, then disappearing just as quickly. And like a lot of these stories, there's one detail that makes it feel just a little more real. A paranormal investigation group once claimed they captured a recording, an EVP, of a young girl's voice, soft, clear enough to understand. And what she said was, "Let me play with your hair." Now, that doesn't sound threatening. It actually sounds innocent, like something a child would say. But I think that's what makes it linger a little longer, because it doesn't feel like fear. It feels like presence. Like she's still there, still curious, still reaching out in the only way she knows how. And whether that's something residual, something aware, or just a story that's grown over time, it's one of those that people keep coming back to, because every once in a while, someone says they see her again.
That one doesn't feel scary to me, and I like it, but it does kind of feel sad.
Yeah, I agree. It's not like something trying to scare people. It just feels like a presence that never really left.
Yeah, like the let me play with your hair part. I mean, that would catch me off guard.
Oh, it absolutely would, but not in a panic way. More like, excuse me, who said that?
Yeah, like you're looking around trying to figure out who said it, like if it was real or not, and then like, should I let her? Should I say yes or no?
Honestly, that's one of those moments where I just pause and go, I'm not saying it's jokes, but I ain't saying it ain't.
You know what? I think that's probably the best response to that situation. This next place is one of those parks where the stories don't just come from one moment, they come from layers of moments. We're heading to Kings Island in Mason, Ohio. Now, on the surface, it looks like any other amusement park. Rides, crowds, families. But when you start digging into its history, things do tend to get a lot heavier. So let's start in 1983. A teenager named John Harder was there for his grad night event on Friday, May 13th. At some point during the night, he had been drinking, and he ended up climbing the park's replica Eiffel Tower. It said he was crushed by the elevator. Since then, people have claimed that Johnny never really left. They call him Tower Johnny. He's said to haunt the Eiffel Tower itself, and not just in the sense of sightings. Some believe he interferes with the park, causing electrical issues, things malfunctioning without explanation, that sort of thing. There are even those who connect him to something locals refer to as Black Sunday, a day where 3 people were electrocuted in a fountain, and a 4th person fell to her death while trying to get a better view of what was happening from an aerial ride. Some say Johnny was responsible. Not everyone believes that, but the story persists, and he's not just tied to the events. There are people who claim they've actually seen him, a figure falling from the tower, over and over and over again. Others say they've heard something instead, like low, tormented moans echoing from above. And there are reports of the tower's elevator doors opening and closing on their own, with no one near the controls. Now, this was all compelling enough that even the ghost hunter team's TAPS came in to investigate. And when they did, they didn't just look at the present, they looked at what came before the park. Because before Kings Island was ever built, that land held something else. In 1942, it was the site of a munitions factory. And that factory exploded, and 100 people were killed. So now you've got layers, tragedy from the 40s, and then again in the 1980s. But even beyond that, there are smaller, more specific stories scattered throughout the park. Like the one they called Racer Boy. At sunset, on one of the park's oldest rides, the Racer roller coaster, people have reported seeing a small boy dressed completely in white. He's often spotted alone, wandering through restricted areas, even climbing parts of the ride structure where no guest should be. Some believe he's connected to an older ride, the Shooting Star from Cincinnati's now closed Coney Island. Parts from that ride were used to build the racer, and the theory is something came with those parts. Then there's something a little harder to explain. At Whitewater Canyon, a water ride, there's said to be a presence that no one really sees but can definitely hear. Employees call him Wally. Some claim he's called Woody. At night, near closing time, people have reported rocks being thrown, like hitting the sides of the ride's observation towers. Towers are only accessible by a secluded wooded path, and by that point in the night, no one really wants to go looking to see what it is. And then, there's one more story tied to not just the park, but to the land itself. Near the entrance, just off the right before the toll booths, there's an old cemetery. It's called Dog Street Cemetery. It dates back to the 18th century, and even now, at least 50 tombstones are still visible. One of them belongs to a 5-year-old girl named Missouri Jane Gallinier. She died in 1846. She drowned in a pond, and some believe she never left that area either. There are reports of a small girl about 4 feet tall, wearing an old-fashioned blue dress. She's been seen walking through the parking lot and near the park's railroad area. Years ago, when the park used trams to transport guests, employees started calling her Tram Girl, because drivers would report the same thing over and over. A little girl stepping out in front of the tram, causing them to slam on the brakes, only for her to disappear completely. When you step back and take a look at all of it together, it's not just one story. It's a place layered with history, with loss, with moments that may have never fully settled. And depending on who you ask, some of those moments are still playing out.
All right, so this next one takes us to Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio. Now, Cedar Point is known for being high energy, roller coasters, crowds, just constant movement. But like a lot of these places, once everything shuts down for the night, it becomes something very different. And there are a few areas there that people keep coming back to when it comes to unexplained activity. One of the main ones is the carousel. During the day, it's exactly what you'd expect. Music, lights, people riding around, nothing unusual. But at night, there have been reports of it running on its own. No operators, no riders, except for maybe one. Some people say they've seen a woman riding one specific horse. The story tied to that goes back to 1917. There was a man who carved one of the carousel horses, and the woman people believe they were seeing was his wife, Mrs. Mueller. Witnesses claimed she was seen riding the very horse her husband had carved. Today, that horse isn't there anymore, but it's been placed on display in a museum inside the park. But the story of her stayed behind. And that's not the only place where things feel a little out of place. There's also the Cedar Point Ballroom. At one point, it was full of life, music, dancing, people gathered together. But when it's quiet, some say they can still hear it. Big band music playing when there shouldn't be anything at all. And along with that, what sounds like movement, like people dancing. Some have even reported seeing figures, like couples moving across the floor, like the moment never really ended. And then there's one more location tied to the park that people talk about. Hotel Breakers. There's a room there, or what used to be a room, before renovations changed how it was used. Now it's more of an employee space. But before that, there were stories about a woman who died there, said to have taken her own life in the shower. And after that, things in that space didn't seem to settle. Lights turning on and off without explanation, electronics not working properly or acting unpredictably, and ongoing plumbing issues, problems that would be fixed but kept coming back consistently. And when you look at all of that together, the carousel, the ballroom, the hotel, it's less about one single moment and more about a place where pieces of the past might still be layered into the present. Not loud, not obvious, just there.
What's interesting to me about that story is the carousel and her riding in the one that her husband said to have carved. It's kind of sweet, honestly. It makes me oh, I'll never let go. Like that sort of thing.
Find your ghost husband and ride him.
Yeah, that's good. Mm-hmm. I do wonder if when they moved that specific horse, if she is seen on that, riding it on display, because
if I were to ever visit there, I would be asking some of the workers about it if they've ever seen her in the museum.
Shame. That would be quite interesting. I feel like one of these days it'd be really cool to go to the actual locations of one of our stories and ask people and get firsthand accounts, and I don't know.
Yeah, cool. We didn't ask anybody on the ship.
We should have.
No.
Okay. Next time. For this next one, we're heading down to Busch Gardens in Tampa Bay, Florida. Now, this park has a very different feel compared to some of the others. It's known for being beautiful, lush landscaping, animals, shows. It has this almost calm, immersive atmosphere during the day. But there's one building in particular where things don't always stay calm. And over time, multiple stories have come out of it. One of the most commonly talked about is a little girl known as Wendy. She's believed to be around 8 years old. No one really knows who she is, whether she was connected to someone who worked there or just a guest who at some point never left, but people say she's there. She's been seen as a misty figure, often forming in the dining room area, and more than that, people say they hear her. They hear her laughter, late at night, echoing through rooms that are otherwise empty. And then there's another story, but this one is much more specific. A longtime employee named Kent Roy reported a single experience that stuck with him. He was working a shift during hurricane season, already dealing with that heavy, uneasy atmosphere that comes with it, and at some point he got a feeling that he was being watched. So he turned around, and what he saw, he described as a woman hovering off the ground right behind him. She was dressed in a white nightgown, and he said it startled him so badly he almost had a heart attack. And before he could even react, she just disappeared. Just gone. Like she was never there, ever. And that figure became known as the Nightgown Woman. But even those aren't the only reports tied to this place. There are others, less defined, but just as consistent, like a figure of a piano player. People say they don't see him directly, not in a clear way. Instead, he shows up in reflections, like window glass, surfaces that catch just enough light. He's dressed in a suit, like he belongs to another time, and along with that, people hear music. They hear soft piano playing. But the moment someone turns to look for where it's coming from, it stops, and the reflection disappears with it. And then there are smaller things, the things that don't come with the full story attached. Lights flickering on and off, trays falling from racks with no one near them, strange orbs moving through the hallways, and even the elevator stopping on floors that no one had selected, sometimes holding people there longer than it should. And what stands out about this is one it's not tied to just a single moment or a single person, it's also layered. Multiple presences, multiple experiences, all in one place. And whether it's Wendy, the woman in white, the piano player, or something else entirely, something in that building doesn't seem to be alone.
Sylvan Beach Amusement Park in Sylvan Beach, New York. Sylvan Beach actually leans into its history. They even offer after-hours ghost tours. And the idea behind it isn't just that something tragic happened there. It's that some of the spirits are believed to be former visitors, people who loved the park so much they came back. The Ghost Hunters team actually investigated the park at one point, looking into the reports, and what's interesting is that paranormal investigators over time have identified multiple presences, at least 3. One is a man named Jack. He's said to have loved staying at the Royal Hotel, and people believe he's still connected to that part of the area. And there's a little girl named Abby, and like a lot of these stories, there aren't a ton of details about her, but she's consistently mentioned when people talk about the spirits there. And then there's Scotty, a former worker. People say he can still be heard whistling in areas called Playland and Treasureland. Not seen, just heard. Like he's still moving through the park, doing what he used to do. But then there's another detail that stands out because it's not tied to a full figure, just activity. Objects moving, specifically near the arcade. People have reported seeing like pieces of wood and even coins being moved or thrown without anyone touching them. And there's a name tied to that, and that's Bill, a former owner. He was known to have loved the arcade as a child, and later as an adult, he was very particular about the park's money and didn't want anyone else handling it. Some believe that hasn't changed, that he's still there, still keeping an eye on things. And I think what makes this place stand out compared to the others is that it doesn't feel heavy. It doesn't feel like something went terribly wrong and left a mark. It feels more like a place people didn't want to leave. Like the memories were strong enough that something stayed attached to them. And instead of fading out, they just kept coming back.
For this next one, we're heading to a place that already sounds like it should feel magical. It is called Enchanted Forest in Turner, Oregon. It's a small, family-owned theme park that first opened back in 1971, and at first glance, it really does feel like something out of a storybook. Fairy tale displays, winding paths, and whimsical buildings. But underneath all of that, there is another side to it. Because over the years, this park has developed a reputation, not just for imagination, but for genuine hauntings. It's even been investigated by Ghost Adventures team, and what's been reported there isn't tied to just one location, it's spread throughout the entire park. Some people have described seeing figures dressed in clothing that looks like it belongs to the 1800s, not part of any attraction, not something meant to be there, just present. Others have reported hearing voices, disembodied with no clear source, and objects moving on their own, especially in an area known as Old European Village. And a lot of this activity is believed to be connected to something nearby, a historic conflict known as the Battle Creek Incident. So instead of being tied to the park itself, some believe the energy was already there. The park was just built around it. Now, within the park, there are a few spots that seem to have more consistent activity. The Haunted House, great name, which during the day is meant to be part of the experience, has reports that go beyond what's expected. Objects move when no one is near them. Shadow figures appear where nothing should be casting them, and then sudden drops in temperature. Then there's the log ride. Visitors had described something that feels almost playful at first, but then quickly turns strange. It is reported that people see figures sitting in the ride and then have them disappear moments later. And they even feel something tug at their hair when no one is behind them. Then there's this crooked house, and it has its own kind of energy too, especially with the name like Crooked House. People have reported the feeling of being watched, subtle nudges like someone brushing past them, and whispers that don't seem to come from any visible source. And then there's the general atmosphere of the park itself. Animatronics that don't behave the way they should, music plays in areas that are completely empty, and even specific scents like cologne or tobacco appear out of nowhere and then fade just as quickly. There's also this attraction called the Challenge of Mondor, and the experiences there are a little different. People have reporting feeling dizzy or disoriented, and they notice props shifting or moving, and even seeing small floating orbs. And when you take all of that together, it doesn't feel like one story. Again, it feels like layers. Like someone was already there long before the park was built, and instead of being replaced, it just blended in. So now you've got a place that looks like a fairy tale on the surface, but underneath, there's something else woven into it, and something that doesn't quite follow the script.
So this next place is different from the others in that it is not an active park any longer. This is one that's been closed for decades. We're heading to Lake Shawnee Amusement Park in Princeton, West Virginia. And from the start, this one carries a different kind of weight because it's not just one story. It's layers of history. I'm thinking we have a theme.
It's onion themed.
I just pictured Donkey today.
The donkey.
Or the Shrek.
Well,
I think it's
ogres
Shrek.
are like onions. Onions have
layers. And it goes back long before the park was ever built. The land itself is actually a Native American burial ground.
No!
1700s.
No!
They always put that in horror movies. Well, guess what? It's actually true in this case.
That's probably why it's been closed for decades.
Well, they actually closed it after they started finding bones, the Native American bones buried.
Oh my goodness.
But even before the amusement park existed, there was tragedy tied to that location. In 1783, a settler named Mitchell Clay experienced something devastating there. His children were killed on that land, and one of them was reportedly burned at the stake. So before rides, before games, before any of it, there was already loss tied to that space. Then, years later, the amusement park was built. And during its operation from 1926 to 1966, there were multiple deaths reported there as well. At least 6 that are known, including a drowning and a fatal accident on the swings. And over time, the park closed. But what's left behind is what people talk about now. One of the most well-known stories is about a young girl, often identified as Emmeline Schrader. She's said to appear near the swing set, the same place where she died when a truck backed into her. Then there's the Ferris wheel. Even though the park has been abandoned for years, some visitors and even cameras have reported captured figures, children sitting on the ride still, because people still visit this park.
I mean, of course they do.
For ghost hunting, and just because how cool would it be to visit an abandoned amusement park? So it's still visited. I'm sure it's not legal, but it's done. There's also the pool area where people say the spirit of a young boy can be seen, the same area where a drowning occurred. Some have even reported seeing ripples in the water when there's nothing there to cause them. And then there's the rest of the park itself, because it's not just one location. Visitors often talking about the feeling of being watched, no matter where they are on the grounds, hearing laughter but not seeing anyone, catching glimpses of shadowy figures that don't quite take shape, and even smaller things like objects moving when there's no wind, pinwheels spinning on their own, or a small bag with a jack-o'-lantern face shifting or being moved as if something is interacting with it. And I think what stands out about this place is how much is layered into it. Like an onion. Sorry.
I mean, it's true.
There's a theme. I feel like we need to give free stickers to whoever can email us at witchandwinin@gmail.com. The first person to email us and just email us the word onion.
You get the whole collection for free.
Onion. And of course your address. We will mail you free stickers. The first person.
I've been working really hard on designing these stickers, and I think I'm doing a good job, if I do say so myself.
Yes, our resident witch/artist is designing all the stickers, and they are amazing.
Thank you.
My cry cut machine is cutting them.
Your what machine?
Cry cut.
I thought it was called a Cricut.
Some people call it Cricut. I think it makes more sense as cry cut.
You know, it does follow the phonics rules if it's cry cut, because there's a vowel at the end of the syllable, and usually when it's an open syllable like that, it makes the long sound.
Exactly. So
anyway, teacher talk there.
So there's loss on top of loss, from the burial ground to early frontier tragedy to the years the park was open. And when you look at it all together, it doesn't feel like isolated stories. It feels like a place where something has been building over time. And instead of fading, it's all just stayed right there, waiting.
So for our last one, we're heading to...
Hold up.
What? Oh.
This is the last story of a haunted theme park. But after she tells this story, there are personal accounts from workers that are connected to the same area that she's about to talk to. And there are, I think, 5 of those.
Yeah.
And they're first-hand accounts from people that have worked there. So stick around.
Oh, God. I'm excited for this one. So we're heading to one of the most well-known places in the world, Disneyland. So specifically right now, I'm talking about an area called Pirate's Lair on Tom Sawyer Island. During the day, this place feels adventurous, kids exploring, climbing, running through the caves and pathways. But the story goes back to June 22nd, 1973. 2 brothers, 18-year-old Bogdan and his 10-year-old brother Dorian Delarotte, were visiting the park with their family. They had traveled all the way from Brooklyn, New York to Anaheim, California. And at some point that day, they made a decision. As the island was getting ready to close for the evening, staff began escorting guests back across the water to the main park. But the brothers didn't want to leave just yet. So instead of boarding the boats like everyone else, they jumped a fence and hid. Back in the wooded area near the burning settler's cabin, they stayed there and waited. Until later that night, around 9:30 p.m., they decided it was time to go back. But instead of calling for help or finding a safe way off the island, they made another choice, and they decided to swim across the rivers of America. That's what it's called, like that water area. Because they didn't want to get in trouble, and after that, the story takes a turn. As they were swimming over, the older brother Bogdan was carrying his little brother on his back and, was swimming across the way trying to make sure that his younger 10-year-old brother was fine. But unfortunately, he ended up passing away. He ended up drowning when he was trying to swim over to the other side with his brother. And the brother was able to doggy paddle back and make it over to the other side, alive. But since then, people have said that the older brother never truly left the island, and that his spirit is still there. And like a lot of these stories, it's not something that's constantly seen, but it is something that's talked about. That in a place designed to feel like an adventure, there's a moment tied to it that didn't end the way it was supposed to. And maybe, in some way, it's still there. So yes, we've covered a lot of ground.
We really have.
Yeah.
Theme parks are supposed to be fun, carefree places, and we just gave them a whole different vibe.
Yeah, and it's like this, there's this whole other layer to them that people don't really think about.
Email us, onion. And what stands out to me is how different each one feels. Some are tied to really heavy history. Some feel more like echoes, and some feel like something just stayed behind.
Which, honestly is probably the most unsettling part of all.
Yeah, because it's not always about fear. It's just something is there. But everything we've talked about so far are the more well-known stories, the ones that have been shared, investigated, and passed around over time.
The ones that have become part of the park's reputation.
Oh, I just spilled wine all over me.
No, not the wine.
Not the gumdrop button.
Do you know the Muffin Man?
The Muffin Man?
Yes, I know the Muffin Man who lives on Drury Lane.
I love that movie.
Me too.
Okay, where was I? Anyway, so I thought it would be interesting to shift into something a little different. Not long-standing stories, but first-hand accounts from people who actually worked in Disneyland.
Because it gives us a whole different perspective.
It really does. These are people just sharing that they experienced. There's no build-up, no legend behind it. The stories we found come from Reddit, from employees who worked at Disneyland talking about the things they saw or heard when the park was supposed to be empty. And as usual, these accounts have been reworded for readability. There has not been anything added.
I love these personal accounts more than the long-standing histories, honestly. I love it. Because then you get to feel it like from their, point of view, a specific person. It makes it more real.
I know. It's like the best part's at the end.
Yeah.
Oh, it's me. All right, so this first account comes directly from Reddit user simple_fortune_1702. Remember, I'm going to read this mostly as they shared it, just cleaned up a little for clarity. The backstage hallways beneath the Haunted Mansion are long, and I remember it being very easy to get lost down there. But if you go the right way, the hallways lead to the other side of the mansion, out near where there's a cast member cafeteria. One day I was walking through the halls, trying to remember how to get to the correct exit to go eat, and I walked past a custodial closet. I saw this woman that I kind of knew. She worked custodial with me, and we had spoken to each other only once or twice before, and I very briefly smiled at her as I kept walking. I thought nothing of the encounter. A week or so later, another CM. What is CM?
Maybe
Something
custodial manager?
Oh, maybe custodial manager. Oh, you're so smart.
Why, thank you.
You're welcome. Another CM told me that same woman had died recently, and fairly positive she died just before I saw her in that closet. Another time I was working an early morning shift on Main Street. It was just after park opening, and I was sweeping next to the Walt and Mickey statue. I heard an older gentleman say, "Excuse me, miss," from behind me. So I turned around with a big smile, ready to help give him directions, since that's what most people ask. There was no one behind me. I looked around for anyone near me that the voice might have belonged to, because voices carry, and there wasn't a single person near me. I looked all around, and there wasn't anyone who even looked like an older man in the entire area. Finally, there was a third shift custodial CM who was cleaning Autopia and kept hearing weird sounds. He took a photo and was freaked out when he saw what looked like a shadow of a lion's head on a human body with its legs bent backwards. Didn't believe this until I saw the photo for myself. He got out of there and showed it to the closest CM. The CM was security, and they actually made him delete the photo. But luckily he had already sent it to a friend of mine who showed me. I have no clue what it was, but the photo was so scary.
So here's the second account, shared by another Reddit user named Cheek on Your Face.
Oh my god. I spit. Well, I into my wine cup, and it went all over me.
Are you not wearing white?
His name is hilarious.
Oh,
My shirt is ruined.
I want to know what kind of cheek.
Oh my god! I didn't even think of it that way.
There's like, what, 3 different kinds of cheeks?
3?
Think about it.
What, left cheek, right cheek?
No.
Your face cheek. Your butt cheek. I don't know of any other cheek.
Okay, I'm not going to say it. Anyway, minutes around.
Now, what is it? Oh, Lord. Lord have mercy.
Anyway, the Reddit user story goes as follows. I want to preface this by saying I don't believe in ghosts. When I first started working for Disneyland, I worked in critter country stores. About 2 weeks after starting, I had a shift that ended 15 minutes after everyone else. So I had to walk through the park alone because no one wanted to wait for the new guy. So now it's 1:45 in the morning, and I'm walking on stage in front of Splash Mountain looking at my cell phone. As I'm right in front of the Splash Mountain entrance, I look up the hill and see a little girl in what looks like a First Communion dress. It wasn't shiny or anything like that, so I just thought it was a girl who was lost, maybe 7 or 8 years old. I look around to see if there are any other cast members who can help me, because I'm panicking, trying to remember the protocol for lost kids since I was still so new. I'm walking toward her, and she's closer to the entrance to the Davy Crockett canoes, and I'm closer to the entrance to Winnie the Pooh. I call out and ask if she needs help or if she's lost, and she still has her back to me. As I get closer, I look around again, thinking how upset I was at security for not clearing the area of the park and leaving me with this mess. We're maybe 20 yards away from each other. I look to the left, then to the right, trying to find any help. And when I look forward again, I see that little girl has run toward me, but I didn't hear her footsteps. And I can tell she's about to run right into me, like we're both going to collide and fall. I wince and brace for impact. What?
I just picture her running into him and taking over his body.
Yeah, all I heard when you popped in was body.
I wonder if I hit the button too late. I said, she about to take over your body.
Yeah, I literally just heard body.
You're like, what?
I'm like, okay. Should I laugh just to make her feel good about her joke that I don't get?
Okay, go on.
I wince and brace for impact, but it doesn't happen. When I open my eyes, she's gone. I look around for a little bit, but I decide this isn't my problem anymore. Security can do their job. I didn't think anything of it until about a week later, when I had an opening shift with one of my leads who had been with the resort for 20 years. I hadn't told anyone about what happened because I thought I might get in trouble for leaving a lost guest in the park, especially a kid.
Yeah, you jackass. How are you not going to tell anybody?
I think it's one of those things like, maybe it's a haunting, maybe it's not. Maybe I'm just going to go home.
He deserved to get his body taken over.
Yeah, because if there was a possibility that it was the real kid, I think I would have stayed around and been like, hello, come out and let me help you. Anyway, so I start asking her kind of casually, have you ever seen anything weird at night? And she responds, did you see a girl in a white dress? My blood turned to ice. My stomach dropped. She had just described everything that happened without me telling her. Turns out, Splash Mountain cast members and Haunted Mansion casts all have similar stories, and some of the older casts would share their knowledge. Apparently, there's a little girl that everyone calls Mary. She loved Tom Sawyer's Island and Haunted Mansion, and that part of the park back in the early 70s. She had leukemia, and when she passed away, her parents spread her ashes on Tom Sawyer Island.
Which is illegal, I'm pretty stinking sure.
Yeah. Evidently, the parents told a Haunted Mansion cast member many years later that they had done this. But by that time, many cast members in the area had already claimed to have seen a girl in a white dress walking on the island or around the area that became the entrance to Critter Country.
Alright, here's another account by Reddit user Foxfire13. And Fox is like Fawkes. Back in September of 1985, when DCA was still a parking lot, Jennifer Reed, a 7-year-old from Torrance, got ran over by a bus. Supposedly, she still haunts the areas around DCA. My personal experience was closing up Flick's Fun Fair at night, now Avengers Campus, and completing my checklist. The park had already been cleared. Security had given us a thumbs up that the bathrooms were clear, and they were walking out toward the main walkway to keep going. I was done and waiting for my partner to take the lost and found items we had from our cabinet downstairs so we could leave. As we were walking past the bathrooms, you could hear the stall doors opening and slamming shut really hard. Like, obvious slamming doors. I looked at my partner, who was completely confused, and then I walked to the entrance of the bathroom. I see a stall door slam open, and I'm half expecting to see a really upset guest. Nope. The door slams shut, and another one bangs open, and then a different one. I couldn't even fully process what I was seeing. I just backed away, looking for any sign of a person. Didn't see one. My partner is staring at me, looking over my shoulder, and we just took a few steps back and ran for the office. We told our lead what was happening, and she went up with another cast member to go look. She called security to come back, but they didn't catch anyone. However, the sinks were running when they got in there. I am not positive what it was, but it wasn't human.
Alright, here's another one, shared by Reddit user anonymous_hipster. Buena Vista Street is haunted by the ghost of a little girl named Jennifer. When DCA was a...
Wait, hold on. That's the same person. DCA, Jennifer. Jennifer is the same person the last person talked about.
Jennifer?
So it's a thing. That was the name of the ghost of the last one.
Was it? Oh yeah, Jennifer Reed.
In the same area, so it's a thing.
You're right.
Go on.
Okay, Buena Vista Street is haunted by the ghost of a little girl named Jennifer. The same ghost that Christal just talked about. When DCA was a parking lot, she was unfortunately hit by a car and passed. One night, while closing on the Kingswell/Trolley Treat side, the door alarm in the Julius Katz room kept going off sporadically. I went in there to check if maybe an item with a sensor had fallen off and triggered it, but it stopped, and nothing was there when I looked. I went back to the trolley side and started it up again. Everyone was deep cleaning the candy cases, so I turned back around, went to the door that was beeping, and told Jennifer to knock it off. We were trying to close up and go home. Then it immediately stopped. And it didn't start again while we were there. Another day, after everyone had left that side, my lead ran back for her jacket. When she went inside, I guess Jennifer got upset that she came back. The pin spinner started moving, and a ton of pins flew off of it. Again, the store was empty and locked up at that point. She just ran back out without her jacket and left a note for the openers apologizing for the mess left behind.
This is the last one. It comes from Reddit user Foxy Molder. Background. I am a current cast member working on Main Street, which includes the stroller rental shop. The stroller shop was built around the existing Disneyland Kennel Club building. The Kennel building was built in 1958, according to the internet, and sits just outside the main entrance to Disneyland. The Kennel Club is no longer in operation, and the stroller shop now uses the building for stroller storage. The original kennel structure still stands with newer add-ons built around it, like a big storage shed for mobility devices. In the 2.5 years that I've worked in this location, I've heard many stories from fellow cast members about strange things happening in and around the kennel, and most of us can agree there's definitely a certain vibe in there. Story time. One coworker said she felt someone touch her arm in the kennel, but she was alone. Another coworker told me she was walking from the kennel into the shed when she felt someone grab hold of her forearm and basically walk with her. She told it to stop and the hand let go. Another coworker was alone in the shed and heard what he described as small footsteps, like a kid running right behind him. Others have described seeing a shadow figure standing in the shed near the kennel. Recently, after talk of ghost stories and strange happenings had ramped up, a box was seemingly pushed off a table, emptying its contents onto the floor. And boxes of gloves in the shed also mysteriously got knocked off a shelf. But the spookiest story I've heard happened to my girlfriend, who also works in this location. She was pushing strollers into the kennel to be stored when she heard her own name whispered into her ear. Miranda!
Stop that!
She was completely alone. She left the strollers and got out of there as quickly as possible, and she was visibly shaken and didn't go back into the kennel for the rest of her shift. I wish I had some first-hand accounts. The only thing I've experienced personally is smelling very strong cigarette smoke outside of Disneyana.
Don't know what that is.
Either. Outside of Disneyana. Super late at night after all the guests had left. Some say smelling cigarette smoke after hours means Walt's spirit is near. Who knows?
Who knows? I do feel like those stories hit a little bit different than the other stories. Like I said before, I like the personal accounts.
Yeah, they do, because those aren't stories that have been passed around for years. Those are just people saying, hey, it happened to me.
Yeah, and there's like no build-up, no legend. It's literally just their experience, believe it or not.
And I think that's what makes it stick a little more. It's not polished. It's not dramatic. It's just someone trying to make sense of something they can't explain.
Which obviously makes it feel more real.
Yeah, and after all of these, every part, every story, every account, it kind of leaves you with that same feeling. Like maybe these places aren't just what we see during the day. Maybe there's a whole other side to them when everything goes quiet.
And we're just not around to see them most of the time.
There's more out there than meets the eye, and not all of it's looking to be found.
Uh-oh. Alright guys, that's all we have for today's episode of Witchin' and Winin'.
Thank you so much for hanging out with us and listening to all these stories.
If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, rate, and review. It really helps more people find us.
And if you have your own paranormal stories, anything strange, spooky, unexplained, or even true crime stories, because we are thinking of adding those in, we want to hear them. You can send them to our email at witchinandwinin@gmail.com.
That's WITCHN
andwinen@gmail.com.
You can also share your stories on our Reddit page, paranormal_shares, or on our Facebook page, Witchin' and Winin'.
We love hearing your experiences, and if you share your experience, you will absolutely get it put on the show.
Absolutely. Also, don't forget to email the word onion so you can get the full collection of our stickers so far.
The first person to email us. And if you think you're not going to be the first person, I promise you will, because nobody has ever emailed us.
Never once in our lives as a podcaster.
We're so basic.
All right. Until next time, guys.
What would you do if a ghost asked you to play with your hair? I'd say, break up the hair ties and glitter. It's time for makeovers.